We are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Black Carnivore podcast. Um, we are glad to be back here tonight. We had a video live or premiere last night. I'm so sorry for the delay. Again, I had massive computer trouble on Tuesday, and just trying to work through it. But in any event, we got the video out yesterday, and I hope you enjoyed it. Arian, did you have a chance to watch it? What do you think? What did you think about it?
I did not get to watch it yet. No.
But you're not a food addict or a sugar addict, so it's like
I guess I was at some point. The sweet taste definitely was killing me for a while, and then I think you're the one that opened my eyes to the fact that actually the addiction to alcohol a lot of times can be a sugar addiction. It is just a sweet taste, or it's that it doesn't it metabolizes to sugar. So yeah, I think in that way I definitely was addicted for a while.
Yeah. Well, our brains can light up, and that's what Florence was talking about yesterday on the show, that sugar, for some people, sugar lights up our brains. It activates the pleasure and reward system. So it's not just that, sugar tastes nice or it tastes sweet and it tastes nice. It's like your brain has a response. And I looked at it, or I had read, what the definition of an alcoholic or alcoholism is. And it's, you can be a person who drinks and maybe, has bad consequences and stuff like that without necessarily being, having that addiction to alcohol. And that addiction comes when you realize that drinking takes away some of the pain of the hangover. And so when that connection is made, and so you start drinking to relieve that pain, that's the point at which you start having an addiction, which I thought was an interesting distinction. So, if you've ever had mimosas the next day after, having a night out drinking and not feeling great, that's how you kind of cement that pattern in your head, that this thing takes away discomfort instead of just causing it.
That's interesting. I had a bunch of people throughout the time that I was drinking a lot of alcohol say that, and I tried it just to see, just because I was curious, never worked. It never made a hangover any better for me.
So your brain doesn't light up. That's kind of what happens. I mean, what I think that point is. So that's not to say that people who don't have that reaction in their brain might not abuse alcohol from time to time or have an unhealthy relationship, but it's a different thing. It's not, the addiction isn't the same. It's not that same physical reaction. Because it's that physical reaction that is going to drive you. And I thought it was interesting, too, that Florence was saying that, the population is sort of split in thirds. So people who use sugar, they might not abuse it, but because of our society, it's almost impossible to, not eat some sugar. And then there are people who who use it, but with, some effort and some good recipes and stuff, can stop using it. And then there are the people who are really abusers. But those people, their brains light up when they eat it. And so the pattern of using it as a tool to manage your emotional state is set because you actually get a physical response from eating it.
So that's the difference between some of those people might end up having an emotional or a psychological addiction, but not necessarily the physical addiction. And that's what she was talking about, was the physical addiction.
Yeah, she's talking about the physical addiction. I mean, you can have a person who, let's say, is going through a bad time and doesn't have good coping strategies, and so during that time eats a pint of ice cream every night,
Right.
after breaking up with somebody, but then after a month or two, they meet somebody else or whatever, and life goes on and the ice cream habit fades. But
Yep.
for the person whose brain lights up, that person, it's not going to fade because their brain is behaving differently on it.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so, and that's why I wonder, because like for you, you often describe like going to spend time with your family and having family dinners. You're able to eat off plan and then just go right back to it. And it's not really a thing, which would suggest that, your brain isn't lighting up the same way mine does or somebody else's does. So when you have that sweet thing, it is not unleashing a beast that's like, let me eat this entire pie and I'm going to go stop at the 7-Eleven and buy all the pies they have and eat them all tonight.
Oh, yuck. No, no. Like, yeah, I do. I'll eat sweets, um, but it never reached that level for me. Um,
Yeah.
it was more like the binging was an overtime thing. So I don't know if I've talked about this on any of these lives, but like when I first got out of college, had my first real job, was making real money, living on my own, and I just had money to spend. So I'm at the grocery store buying all the things that I want to have. So like mostly that's M&Ms, like donut holes, and
Yeah, that
like
Louisiana crunch cake, that was a good one.
I don't think I had that a Louisiana crunch cake. I had like coffee crumb cake, but
Mm.
crunch cake, I don't know what that is.
It's
Um,
crunchy, coconutty, good.
oh, I don't know that I would do the coconut, but be that as it may. Um, so yeah, I get like all these like those like pastries and donuts and stuff, and I would just pop them while I was working. But I could tell, or I now know that that was a response to boredom even then. So maybe that wasn't like addiction. That was emotional eating.
Yeah. I mean, you can, abuse these substances for other reasons than addiction. So, like I was saying, Florence was saying, if you're going through a difficult time and you don't have great coping mechanisms, you might, use it, but that doesn't mean your brain is going to respond in a certain way. And so she was
Hmm.
saying that, like, for, if let's say you're a person whose brain doesn't light up like that, or you have a slow and gentle response to sugar, you probably won't become addicted to sugar as your method of dealing with life. You're going to become addicted to some other drug that gives you a faster, harder hit,
Hmm.
which I thought was, kind of interesting. And it made me think about the times that I've had Lily's chocolate, which is sweetened with something else that's not sugar. What I noticed about it was that, and maybe some of you all had this experience. It tasted like chocolate, but it didn't. As I said, it didn't feel like it had joy in it. The joy that you get when you bite into chocolate and the feeling that you get. Lily's doesn't have that for me. So,
Hmm.
I think what's happening for me is that, that artificial sweetener is not lighting up my brain the way sugar is. And I'm missing that high. So it's kind of like, it's definitely going to drive me to go look for some sugar because I want it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh, Terry agrees with me. Louisiana crunch cake is the bomb. Yeah.
I've never heard of this before. I want to see what this looks like. I didn't. I got that feeling. I got the joy off of the food. Maybe it was that I always had other ways to get that joy, or the other ways were just as powerful. It was never like I never was in a situation where there was just one.
Mm-hmm.
Like early on, I recognized with alcohol, like I could get addicted to this. So I never wanted to just indulge and indulge and indulge. I always wanted to like take breaks from it, and not be getting drunk every time I drank. Like I wanted to control it the entire time. Um, I didn't do that with sugar because I didn't think sugar. I never heard of sugar addiction at that time. I hadn't heard of it. I did get that joyful feeling from eating sugar though, and
Well, I mean, of course, we can't compare the level of joy. So your
right.
joy, I don't know, it could how it compares to mine. But I think that what all of that is saying is that your brain doesn't respond to sugar in the same way that mine does. But
Mm,
that's why, you know, I mean, that's why, if we were in the show Breaking Bad, you would be off somewhere doing some other drug. I might be in the donut store, and then Jesse's out looking for meth. Like,
right.
each person's brain is, set up to get that high, and we go for that thing that gives us that. And I was thinking about it when I was having that conversation with Florence, that like, I think it's interesting that sugar is this thing because it is so easy to get. It doesn't alter your ability to function, on a day to, I mean, your ability to interact with other people, drive and like do stuff. So
Mm,
it's more insidious. If you're going to, have a couple of beers at lunch, like you can't just walk back into work and, expect, things to be fine. But
right.
you can, on your break from your afternoon break, like get a candy bar, and that high isn't going to keep you from being able to function. So sugar is one of
Mm,
those things that you can like consume all day without it, well, I mean, now that I have lived off sugar, I see that my brain was dull and I had, no ability to function. But in terms of just like the general population, you're able to function fine enough to get by while eating sugar. So I realized that, I don't know. When I was a kid, I didn't worry, or in high school and college, I didn't worry so much about like getting addicted to drugs or anything, because I was like, I've already got mine. Like cigarettes and candy fulfill almost all of those needs. So and now as an adult and as a person who's quit those things, I realize, yeah, those two drugs really, really, they just hit the spot. And when I had coffee too, throw in a cigarette with a good cup of coffee first thing in the morning while journaling. I mean,
mm.
yeah.
So, as a kid, were you aware that like those were your things? Like that, oh, I don't need drugs. I got sugar and I got cigarettes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I didn't really worry about, whether, what would happen, or if I would get addicted to other things, or if people offered me other things, what I would do. Because I knew like my base thing was there. I knew even before, even in, as a kid or in high school, before I understood, that there was such a thing as sugar addiction, what addiction was, or anything like that. I knew that that was my first and foremost addiction. And
Mm,
cigarettes came later, and it was an added plus, but it was sugar was the foundation. And my grandfather and many of his siblings were alcoholics, and so my mom grew up in a very alcoholic, chaotic home. And
mm,
for people who are children of alcoholics, you can imagine what that means. And so there was love in the house for sure, but there was just the chaos that alcohol brings. So both her and my uncle as adults just like made the decision not to ever drink. But they also both were 300-400 pounds. So I thought as a kid, even before I had the language for this, I thought, wow, they're alcoholics, but with food. That's what I used to think.
yep.
And and I, and sometimes I'd see my mom like have like a bad day, eat a pint of ice cream, be sick, and just sort of pass out in the bed. And it was like, I'm not sure I see how this is different. And
looks like drunk to me.
Yeah. And I was like, we were supposed to go and do stuff. And now you're just going to be in bed and sick from eating the ice cream. Like, man. So, yeah. So in some ways, like, it's not the same. But in some ways, I feel like, oh, I guess I grew up in a home of an alcoholic too, except it was sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, and I think a lot of people just, they don't realize it or they don't think it's possible, but you can totally transfer one addiction to another. Like, step off of one thing and now I'm not drinking anymore, but I'm eating a lot. Or I'm not smoking, but I'm eating a lot is what happens a lot too. And it's not just like, like smoking does help a person lose weight in an unhealthy way, but also like they need something to do, and it a lot of times needs to be something with their mouth, so it becomes food.
Yeah, I used to think that you could sort of switch addictions. Because I had three. I rotated between alcohol, sugar, and cigarettes. And I guess a fourth of coffee, if you want to put that one in there. And so as I would have more of one, I'd have less of the other. But if I tried to, eat less so I could diet, then I would be drinking more and smoking more. Or if I tried to drink less, I would be eating more and smoking more. And so they always kind of went up and down together. But nothing replaced the thing. So I knew that I couldn't decide, okay, I'm going to quit like drinking and smoking cigarettes and I'm just going to like take up meth. Like that wouldn't fill it, it doesn't replace, because there are certain things that just work and other things that, I think for your brain, there's certain things that just click perfectly and then others that don't. So that's what I meant too about like not worrying about like any other drug, because I already had mine. They were already picked and they were already set and they fit perfectly. I remember, I don't know if you read that author, David Sedaris. I think one of his biggest books was Me Talk Pretty One Day, that came out like in the late 90s and it was super popular. Well, he's sort of like a humorist and, his writing is really great. He's just very funny and is really good. And I think his sister, Amy Sedaris, is an actress who you might have seen in a bunch of things. Anyway, I remember him writing at one point, like as a kid, he had all of these weird quirks and things, like he, was sort of, I guess, OCD. He would have to touch touch like every light pole that, he walked by on the sidewalk, or he would like lick the light fixtures in the house, and there were just all of these weird quirk things that he did. And he said the first time he picked up a cigarette, it was like all of that just immediately disappeared. It fulfilled all of the quirks, the weirdness, it fulfilled everything for him. And from then on, he smoked obsessively, and it resolved all of those anxieties for him. And I was like, I get that. I totally get that. So for you, I think, again, it's interesting that sugar, I think probably, your brain and my brain, or my experience of joy with sugar is not the same as your experience. You're like, oh, this is delightfully tasty. Thank you, my lovely grandmother, aunt, whomever, for making this homemade cake. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how many slices can I have before people say something? And, maybe there's a place I can stop on the way home and buy some more, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, definitely different. That has never been me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if anything, I was more like that. I was a lot more like that with alcohol, and with smoking. Sugar was cool. Sugar was nice. Sugar definitely filled a role, but it did not do all of that for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Portia says, right, someone is scarfing down a dozen donuts, and I'm looking at them like they're crazy, but I'm swallowing half pints. So it's different for everyone. Yeah. So yeah, so she's saying that everyone has, their thing. And Johnny G says, yep, candy kept me clean too. And I don't know if you all remember, I don't know if anybody here watched that show, Nurse Betty. If you didn't, I highly encourage it. It was the funniest, craziest, most amazing TV show. But the main character in it, she's actually, she's a nurse, but she's also a drug addict, but no one knows. And she's super competent at her job, so, no one would suspect. But one day, and she's like having an affair with the pharmacist at the emergency room. She's an emergency room nurse, having an affair with him. And, you come to find out, like, he's also supplying her with drugs. And one day, like, she mostly, I think, did heroin. But one day, he couldn't get her and she didn't have any and whatever. And so at work, she's like basically in withdrawal, but still trying to work through the whole thing. So she was like eating just a lot of sugar. And, sugar is one of those things. I mean, you're not going to get, the high that you're going to get from heroin, but it attenuates some of the withdrawal symptoms. And I was like, isn't that interesting? Like, wow. And alcoholics, too, also talk about that, or people talk about that with alcoholics, that, there's a lot of sugar consumption afterwards, which is basically just trying to do that.
Right. And maybe that's what I was thinking of earlier. Maybe it's really not like the transfer of addictions, but like you need something to give you that quick release of endorphins that you used to get from whatever your drug of choice was.
Yeah. Well, and I found that sometimes it's a double-edged sword with that, because for me, sometimes when I look for that other thing, all that does is keep the addiction alive, and I'm just always looking for something rather than like ultimately learning to sit with being uncomfortable. And, that's at the base of all of this, is just to, not look for anything to change your emotional state, and just, learn to live in your emotional state, whatever it is.
Yeah. And that might explain why I didn't have the issue as much, because that's always been kind of, it's been relatively easy for me, or I guess I should say I haven't had a lot of problems dealing with my emotions. So always knew that I could have multiple ways of dealing with them. And I remember a Rob Cybers video where he explained that the difference between a healthy and an unhealthy way is that a healthy way takes some work first. You don't get the endorphins just instantly, just cause. You work for them, and then they come, then you get the reward.
So that's what, engaging in a good sports activity or fitness program can do for you.
Right.
But, if you grew up in 80s New York and it wasn't safe to go outside anywhere, you just, grew up on TV and doing no physical activity. I mean, I might have been a completely different person if I were a sports kid. Because you're right. I mean, you can get that high in a different way.
Well, even without sports, I didn't start playing organized sports until, I played Little League, but that was every once in a while, or you may have a practice once a week and a game once a week. But in New York, were you just not going outside and running around? Was that not a thing there?
Oh, God, no. Are you kidding? No.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. No, it was not safe to be I mean, I wasn't allowed to do that. There were certainly people who did run the streets, but, you know, I was not allowed to do that. And, you know, where I live, like, you know, back then, block by block was dangerous or safe. You know, it really depended what was happening on that particular block. So, you know, hanging outside was not like a thing. And there were 2 crack houses on my block, but there were also, you know, some really nice buildings and whatever. So, you know, crack was just like a thing in New York, and it was everywhere. Which, you know, means there was violence usually wherever crack was. So.
That is okay. Yep.
Yeah. So the kids who are out on the street playing double dutch and, you know, running around or jumping rope, like that wasn't a thing, you know, that I got to do.
Oof. Yeah, I can imagine that, like, kind of screws up a kid then, because you don't have the good ways of occupying yourself and releasing the endorphins. Because it wasn't like sports. It was just like, for me, I don't know, I grew up in a smallish city suburb of Ohio, or suburb of Cleveland, for the first half of my childhood, and my mom just kicked me out the house every day. But most of the time she didn't have to, because I wanted to leave. It was literally like, eat breakfast, I'm out. And she has to tell me, like, you make sure you come back for lunch, because I would stay out all day if she let me. And on the rare occasion that I did want to stay inside, if it was a warm day, I'm getting kicked out. Go outside, don't come back until around this time. How will I know what it's that time? I don't know. Just ask an adult, whoever's around. But it was safe enough, and they knew everyone in the neighborhood that we could do that.
Yeah, no, none of that. None of that for me. So ZZ Captain is here. I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. And Mr. Gavel, thank you so much for the super sticker. That was really, really awesome. Johnny G says, no one in the chat can relate to you, Arian.
Sorry.
No.
Y'all should have played outside. Maybe that's it.
No, I don't think it's that. I think he was referring to you're not having that, like, addictive, that, you know, your brain lighting up in the same way. So, you know, and so that was the luck of the draw. So that's awesome. I'm glad. And then, wait, Portia says Nurse Betty. Wait, what was the show called? Now I'm confused. So, was it Nurse Jackie or Nurse Betty?
I think it's Nurse Jackie. Nurse Betty was a movie from some time I don't know when, but it was a semi-recent movie. Nurse Jackie is the TV show about the drug-addicted nurse. Yeah.
Okay. That was a great show, though, man. I started watching it thinking, I'm just going to fill some time and watch a half an hour. And then it was like, you know, 2 seasons later, I'm like, I can't stop watching. It was really, really awesome. And that's when I realized that actress is, well, so many of the people on that show were really, really, they're really good. And let's see. And then Simply Hazel says, I like that thought process, agreeing to be uncomfortable. Yeah, that's just, unfortunately, that's the basis for all of this stuff. And GMO says, back in the day, they gave soldiers alcohol to get through surgery amputation. They gave baby boys their first hit of sugar to go through circumcision. Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty shocking that sugar can work that way. You know, we just don't think of it as that powerful, but if it's powerful enough to have your foreskin cut off, like,
oh yeah,
I mean, think that's pretty powerful.
It has all the effects of alcohol minus like 2 negatives, I think.
Yeah. So instead of 98, 96, but you know, It's still a lot. Yeah. Yeah, Simply Hazel. 80s in New York was, you know, it was very dangerous all over the city. There was no place that was really safe. Even the Upper East Side, crazy stuff happened. So, you know, but New York doesn't have that same, you know, colorful feeling anymore either. It feels very safe and tame, which is a nice feeling, but it's definitely different. Yeah. I'm not sure what Portia's writing here. So in any event, it was a really good conversation yesterday, and I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen the interview, definitely go back and see it, share it with people. I really found a lot of benefit from working with Florence. And, like I said, like I had been able to quit sugar for even longish periods, but it was hard. It wasn't something that went easily. And so this is the first time I've really had a lot of ease around it. And that, is priceless. That really is priceless. So I would definitely work with her. At least get the free consultation, see if, this is something that would be helpful for you. And, and then go forward from there. So, so that was that. But, the reason I raised this is, of course, the title, I titled tonight's video, Ancestral Eating in a Modern World. The reason I raised this is that, we're trying to eat in an ancestral way, because our brains are, ancient. They're not, our brains and our bodies have not caught up with, like, the modern world's access to, let's say items that have been labeled food. And so it's hard for us to bring our ancient bodies and brains into the future. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So I wondered if you'd had any thoughts about that either, Arian.
I think it's very hard, but I think that I think we're not trained in it, so that's what makes it so hard. And we're not reinforced in it in pretty much any way. So you don't know what you're doing, and then you finally start to learn, and you realize the more, we see it with people in the group all the time, you see that as they're learning bits and pieces, they're going, oh crap, you mean that too? Mm-hmm. This thing too? I can't do this? Mm-hmm. Or this doesn't fit? And you go, no, and you explain why, and they go, oh God, well that means this, and this, and this thing too. And then they think about the fact that, what am I going to do when I eat out? Mm-hmm. Or if I just need something quick, where do I go? Like, it's not reinforced in any way. You are pushed towards processed food. Pretty much every step of the way. But I do think it's possible. I mean, clearly, like, I feel like I do it to a good extent. But yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world, no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty stunning when you open your eyes and learn about, like, what we thought of as food, how it's not food. And, and so, yeah, in the beginning, it's there's a lot of, oh my God, so I can't have this, that, and the other. But it is, that stage, I mean, you have to go through that, and then you come out on the other side and you start to really value your health in a different way. But I think it's hard for people to understand any of that. And, a lot of people, who know how I eat think that it's crazy and really unhealthy. And I was having a conversation with someone today, and she was like, well, do you eat a lot of processed meat? And, I was like, well, no, because, I mean, I said, I think of those things as like my candy. So if I buy a stick of pepperoni, like I might eat a lot of it, but it's not dinner. It can't be the base of my meal. And not only have I made a decision, I'm not going to do that, but like, I just don't feel good, or I don't feel satisfied. So I just know it's not the base of a meal. But, when but in having that conversation, she was kind of trying to wrap her head around how carnivore might be okay, and the fact that I'm staying away from processed meats means that I'm safer because those are cancer causing. And I was like,
whoop-de-frickin-do.
Well, I was like, I think that's actually a statement that we ought to examine, because there are no processed foods that don't also have sugar in them. So it's hard to identify what is the thing that's cancer causing. And two, I don't have a problem with preserved meats. Like, we have been smoking and creating hams and sausages for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. Like, making food last has been like the human endeavor since, we started having food. So, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's the other stuff that's in there. And, and I said, and also you have to think about like, what is processed food? With these studies that are being done, like you've seen that a slice of pepperoni pizza is put into the red meat category, even though it doesn't have red meat in it. But because it has pepperoni, it becomes meat. And then it gets put into the red meat category, I guess, because it's not chicken or fish. And, it's, I don't know.
It's literally advertised as the other white meat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but it's red. And it leaves red grease on your plate.
Well, okay, yeah. Pepperoni does. But I don't actually... How does pepperoni end up red? Because pork is white or a light color.
Spices. It's all, red pepper and stuff like that.
So then, what are we even talking about? I don't know. People...
Exactly. What are we talking about? Yeah. So, but that all, that process of learning and understanding all of those things, that really takes some time and commitment for a person to like accept that. And when I talked to my friend about sugar causing cancer, there just was kind of like, oh, yeah, there's all kinds of studies. And it's like, actually, no, there's a lot of studies. And I just sent you one. I emailed one the other day. I can't remember what it was, but it was about sugar causing cancer. I mean, it was just yet another study.
Significance of low carbohydrate diets and fasting in patients with cancer.
Oh, right. So it was actually, that study was showing that combination actually does, slow down the proliferation of the cancer. So I think in that study, they weren't saying, that you could like skip chemo and, traditional, cancer treatment, but adding those pieces in helped the traditional cancer treatment to work more effectively. But that tells you that there really is a problem with sugar and carbohydrates. And so some of you might have seen, I posted a video in the Facebook, and it was an interview that Florence had done with the head of a research cancer laboratory at Weill Cornell, which is a hospital. It's, one of those world-class hospitals here in New York. And in fact, the place where my mom was treated and ultimately passed. But this doctor was just talking about sugar, and he has done, just a ton of research, and he's like, sugar causes cancer. Like, sugar causes cancer. I feel no, doubt or I don't need to qualify that statement. There's a ton of research, sugar causes cancer. And he said it has to happen in conjunction with insulin. So he said when they're growing cancer in their, Petri dishes and doing their research and stuff, like, it can't just be sugar in there. There has to be insulin as well. And so he was saying every time you have hyperinsulinemia and you have an elevated amount of insulin, you're, feeding cancer cells. So, and the idea is with cancer, like, we always get cancer cells like throughout our lives, but your immune system is usually on top of it and able to destroy them before they get a foothold. But at a certain point, for whatever reason, when your immune system is occupied by being chronically inflamed or having some other thing going on, those cancers can get a foothold and ultimately grow so much that they outcompete your immune system. But then when you're like eating a lot of sugar and stuff on top of it, that's only feeding and assisting that cancer to to gain a stronger foothold. And that was really just so powerful to hear. And I think, like, when my mom was, had cancer and I kind of did ask the doctor one day, like, does how she eat matter? And, and they're like, oh, so many patients, it's hard for them to eat. If they just need the calories. So if it's ice cream and jelly beans, it's fine. Doesn't matter. And I was just kind of like, so, that's often what my mom ate. Not ice cream, but, jelly beans, candy. And that was her thing, like the straight up candy. So I was more of a donuts chocolate person, but she was like jelly beans, just pure sugar kind of person. So,
God, yeah, they just, I don't know, jelly beans, ice cream, it's all good, whatever. Where, like, I would think most cancer patients, they're going to be fine if you have them fasting most of the time. They're going to be just fine. But no one thinks about that. No one, that's, at least in the medical establishment, that's not, like, the idea. And they probably, who knows if these doctors know thing one about, like, sugar and especially insulin's effect on the growth of cancer cells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it does make me think that, like, every instance of your eating sugar is a problem. You are feeding cancer cells. So presumably you've got cancer cells, all the time, or, they come in and out and they're happening pretty frequently. So each and every time you have a binge or decide to eat a little of this, a little of that, like, you are feeding cancer cells, and at that moment, your immune system probably, hopefully, is, strong enough to be able to overcome it. But at a certain point, maybe it won't be. And so it really started making me think, wow, maybe this is kind of like Russian roulette. Like, each Hershey Kiss, that could be the one that, sets off this chain reaction that you're not able to recover from.
I think that's a very extreme way to look at it. I think depending on what you've been doing, like how you've been eating so far, and what your current patient, I'm sorry, I read a comment as I was thinking, what your current diet is, and what your diet has been, and all the other factors that have been making, giving you more, I guess, putting you in a more cancer, I don't know, genic state. I'm just going to make up words now, as opposed to, like, not putting you in that state. Yeah, I think that you probably can hit a point where now you are like, all right, this cancer is bad, and now you will need treatment, as opposed to before you were kind of, your body was fighting, and maybe it was fighting a losing battle, but, like, this is the part, or maybe there is a point where you tip over from winning the battle just barely to losing it. That makes sense to me. But I don't think that everybody has to walk around thinking, like, oh, this might be the piece of sugar that puts me in the grave.
I guess we're going to respectfully agree to disagree. I think that it's possible that sugar could be, we could think about it like that. Maybe not for the young and healthy person or the person whose metabolism isn't that beat down yet. But if you have been, obese for a long time, you're, struggling with chronic conditions and stuff like that. And, for that person, yeah, that you could be looking at it like that. And I'm thinking about this from the perspective of someone who's, approaching 50 and who has been obese for a long time and who has autoimmune disease. So, I'm not coming at it as a 25-year-old, very fit athlete. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just worry that, like...
I'm being too alarmist.
Yeah, exactly. It's very alarmist. And I think, like, that can tear up a person's resolve if there's too much of a feeling of hopelessness, like I'm gonna fail at some point, I'm not gonna be perfect at this, and who knows when what the failure is that's gonna kill me. Like that's the kind of thought that has people. I know people who just go, well, look, I'm gonna die anyway, so I'm gonna die doing the stuff that I love, and as they like reach into a bag of candy or something. I would want people to still believe, and I still believe, that until you are at the very end, when you have actually not just tipped over into cancer, but tipped over into there's nothing we can do about this, there is something you can do. There is healing that's possible, not just like you're on the wrong side of the landslide now, or the wrong side of the hill and you're going down.
I guess I think it's helpful to be that alarmist because, we're fighting against an indoctrination that there's nothing wrong with sugar. I think that's really what's at issue. And at one point I said in the video with Florence, like, we're taught that sugar, people say sugar is bad, but they don't really mean that. It's just kind of like control how much sugar you have. And if you're not controlling how much sugar you have, the fault does not lie with the sugar. It lies with you as a person who has some, moral or personal failure that you can't stop eating it. And so I think that really highlighting what this research has shown about sugar causing cancer is really important for people to hear, because if you don't think that, it's easy to say, well, a little is fine. But how much? We don't know. Like, that research hasn't been done as to how much you can have before it becomes too bad. And everybody's body is sort of a little different. So how much is too much? You can't really tell from one person to the next. But knowing that it has that effect, I think is really important information for a person to then be able to make a decision about whether they're going to continue to consume it or not. And I don't think that people are given enough information to accurately make that decision, because if it makes you feel good, it solves a lot of problems. And you think the only problem might be that if you don't brush your teeth, it could give you cavities, then of course, there's no real incentive to stop. But to know that, it causes cancer, I mean, enough that this guy, he stopped eating at 40 added sugar 40 years ago. So he has been, I guess, sort of low carb-ish. He wouldn't call himself keto, and certainly not carnivore, but
what guy is
but
this?
He made what?
What guy is this?
And so his name is Dr. I think Lewis Cantley. So he's the head of the Cantley lab at Weill Cornell, and they do a whole bunch of oncology research.
Okay.
Yeah, I put a link, if you go to the video, I put a link to the lab so you can see his name and who he is. And then I looked on PubMed. He's published tons and tons of research. So if you go to PubMed or NCIH or whatever that website is, you can see all of the research studies. So I just thought that was really important. And, I don't think that I'm being alarmist enough. I think that, we worry about scaring people and that they might just say, to heck with this. I can't do it. It's too hard. Let me, go back into eating my ice cream. But, look how long it took to come out about cigarettes. I mean, eventually, they started putting out those ads of, people like, I had to quit. I should have quit smoking long ago. And, those things really upset people to see those commercials. And they learned that actually doesn't really make people quit. So they took different approaches to trying to get people to quit cigarettes. And so I don't mean to be making fun of any of those people. Those were, those commercials are horrible, and the things that happened to those people, really were horrible. But if you saw those commercials and you were a smoker, that made you more anxious. And I usually would have to go have a cigarette. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't have been presented that information. It just means I need better support to figure out a way to quit. And
right.
Yeah. So, I've never liked Michael Bloomberg as a mayor in New York City, but there were a few things I thought he did really, really well. And even though I hated, because I still smoked at the time, I hated that he outlawed cigarette smoking in New York. The one thing that he did really well with that was to provide 3 months of free quit smoking assistance. So that meant, 3 months of the patch, the gum, or whatever you wanted. They had 24-hour hotline so that you could call somebody and just be like, I need to have a cigarette, talk me out of it. And they would do it. And they provided a ton of support for anybody who wanted to quit smoking, all for free. And and I think that is the kind of thing that, maybe we need. I mean, so yeah, going out and yelling and being super alarmist about sugar causing cancer is scary, but also providing that with, hey, here's how you do a low carb diet. Here's a subreddit. Here are some people to follow. Here are some recipes. Here's how you incorporate this into your life. That is a solution. Okay, so let's see. Studsy Nubian is here. Wow, I haven't seen you in a while. Awesome. And let's see. Susan says, well, cancer can happen to anyone at any age. Yep. Johnny G says cancer was seen in populations that hadn't been exposed to the Western diet. Yeah, I mean, cancers happen. Sense. And they have existed since those cells that type of cell has existed since the beginning of time. But what we're talking about is allowing your immune system to do its job. But right now, our immune systems are all tied up with our being obese, diabetic, and all the other stuff. Katura says there's always hope, but you do also have to consider that sugar is not food or healthy, even in moderation. Yeah. Let's see. And GMO says if narcotics enter a neighborhood, largely the problem is pointed at the substance itself, while on the other hand, if sugar is causing a problem, the condemning finger is pointed at the person. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's because even in the case of diabetes, we don't really talk about the sugar as the problem. Very rarely does anyone recognize sugar to be the problem or to be the cause of any problem. They don't want to accept it. They don't want to they don't want to call it out for what it's actually doing.
Yeah. And, I got a message yesterday from someone on Instagram who, essentially said, well, sugar, we shouldn't have added sugar, but our bodies, we need sugar. That's a necessary part of the human diet. And and I think that too is a problem. The industry, the food or snack industry has also completely, obscured what is sugar. So when I say sugar, and I talked to 5 other people, we all mean 5 different things by what is sugar. And so many people I know are like, oh, I haven't added sugar, in years. And I'm like, but I just saw you eat, spaghetti sauce and, a bagel and you had a muffin. What do you mean you're not having added sugar? All of that is added sugar.
Yeah. So they started labeling added sugar in this like the ploy, I guess the strategy or the thought process is sugar that occurs naturally in the food is okay. But if at any point in our process we just took a vat of sugar and just poured some into the thing, now we've added sugar. And that part's the problem. That's what you want to minimize. But it's okay that this bread already came with 4 grams of sugar in it per slice or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
It's
But
okay
you
that
know,
this
there.
pasta
Mhm.
actually like total carbohydrates is somewhere around 30 or so for just one serving. We're not even talking about that. Like, so there's that understanding of sugar, and then there's, I guess, like a level above that is what you're talking about. That just because you don't like pour a teaspoon of sugar onto a thing does not mean it doesn't have added sugar.
Mhm. And I'm surprised at how many people actually don't look at the ingredients list. So,
Yeah.
the jar will say no added sugar, and then you look at the jar and the ingredients list, and there's sugar added. So, I'm kind of like, you got to look more closely. You have to look at the ingredients list. Um,
Uh, when
yeah.
I went paleo and then keto, my girl at the time hated me. She hated going to the grocery store with me. She felt like it always took 5 times as long as it was supposed to because
Yeah.
she just wanted to go buy a thing and I just want pasta, I want
Yeah.
spaghetti, I'm just picking up the spaghetti. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the box. Is this the one that I
Yeah.
want?
Yeah.
Is there a more low carb version? Let me look at all 20 of these that are on the shelf and try to
Yeah.
find out which one is the best.
Yeah. 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 I was
A
the
lot of hard
same way.
decisions.
I was the same way. But now, now I like avoid those aisles. Like there's nothing in the aisles that I'm going to be getting. So there's nothing to look at. No reason to go down them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much easier.
Um, and then I see Mr. Gavel says, I think we should scare people about sugar just like we did cigarettes. I agree. Um, yeah. Johnny G says carnivore is the easiest diet I've ever been on. Simply Hazel says, does anyone remember when they used to show eggs in commercials relating to cholesterol being extremely harmful? I don't remember that, but I do remember This Is Your Brain on Drugs and them making the
It's
scrambled eggs. So I
the
don't
eggs
know
and
if those
cholesterol
overlap.
things. It sounds very familiar, but I don't know that I've seen that commercial.
Um, Mr. Gavel says Coca-Cola will not allow us to get the word out, though. They are paying millions to prevent the anti-sugar movement. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and Katora says agreed 8A, and that is where you come in. Thank you. Yeah, we're spreading the word. Don't have the sugar. Be alarmist.
Hmm.
Trying to scare you all to death.
And I do feel like it's right for people to be scared about cancer from sugar. Let's not get that misconstrued.
Yeah.
Cancer
Now,
is one of the things that comes from overuse of sugar.
now, well, so actually, let me rephrase that sentence, Arian, because I think that's actually part of the problem. You said cancer comes from the overuse of sugar, but I think that's where that obfuscation comes in, where there's no definition for overuse or what that means for a specific person, and that also allows you to sort of gives you an out to say, well, maybe sugar won't cause cancer for me. But the research shows that sugar causes cancer. That's what they say.
I
So
feel
I
like
think
that's an
that's what we should say.
oversimplification. If you're going to say that, then you
That's
have to
what they
say,
say.
That's fine. I think there's more to it than that, though, because there are other things. That's the point that I think Johnny G and somebody else were making up earlier about like cancer being seen in other populations and stuff. I think there's sugar is definitely a cause of cancer. There are other things that are causes of cancer too that aren't sugar, and by that same logic, saying sugar causes cancer and not saying anything else, like, then tells a person, oh, well, I can not eat sugar and I'll be fine. And they can still catch cancer, or they can still have uncontrolled cancer in a different way or from a different
Mm-hmm.
cause, such as um, uh, what's pollution.
Well, I mean, being exposed to a cancer-causing agent, like working at a nuclear reactor facility. Yeah, there are for sure other things. So yeah, my saying that sugar causes cancer is not to say that there aren't other things. And of course, smoking cigarettes has, it has also been shown that, that typically leads to lung cancer. So, yeah, I don't mean to say that there aren't other things that cause cancer, but to know and understand that at least that the research is saying that sugar leads to, to cancer growth. Whether you're going to die from it, whether you or whether you catch it early enough, or whether you're able to do other things in your environment so that you don't die from it, that's another question. But that is, but that's not the question of whether sugar causes cancer. So what's going to happen after, you get cancer, that can vary. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I do think that we should be, super clear about that. It's not that there's a question about whether sugar causes cancer. There is a question about what happens, and whether your immune system is able to, fight it off and be victorious. That we hope happens, but we don't know.
Okay.
Let's see. Simply Hazel says grilled oysters, but too much char is bad, I've read. And I think that's actually something you've talked about before too, Arian, is that, I mean, we've been grilling meat, since fire was, invented. So,
whatever that was.
Right. So is it, how bad is it to eat charred food? Which I think is a reasonable question. Like,
yeah,
it's, that's a way we've been eating for a long time.
Right. And then people look into the charring and they say, well, there's chemicals in there that are carcinogenic. And the question is like, so does that mean don't have that stuff at all? Or that some certain amount is okay? If so, how do you determine the amount that's okay? I'm confused on it. I'm just kind of lucky enough that I don't really love charred meat anyway. If it's there and I have to eat it, I will, but like that's not what
Oh my God. What?
No.
But
No,
do you pan fry your
have
steaks?
Me and you have had this discussion before. I don't need to have crispy food.
Oh, yeah. We have had this discussion, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm that weirdo who like for instance today had two little steaks for I guess we'll call it dinner, even though it was at like 5 p.m. 6 minutes in the air fryer, 3 minutes on each side. They were not charred anywhere. There was no black part anywhere. I was fine.
Right. Yeah. I have eaten it that way. I mean, and I'm okay with it. I mean, it's, it's edible, but it's not going to be, it's not nothing to write home about. So
I like the taste of the meat. I feel like that charring has a whole another thing to the meat that
it's another flavor.
Yeah. And usually not one that I want.
Gotcha. Now, GMO says Dr. Fung compared cancer cells to seed that every person has. The difference is the quote-unquote soil or bodily environment in place that stimulates, encourages growth. Yeah, I think that's pretty much how you would describe terrain theory, which, versus germ theory, or, I mean, that's like a conversation that's going on now about, the dreaded disease that everybody's dealing with now. But if you keep the environment healthy, then the seeds will be there, but that doesn't mean that they're going to grow. And that's the point. If your immune system is healthy and not like overreacting and causing you all kinds of autoimmune issues, or dealing with the constant inflammation from being obese or having diabetes and other stuff going on, then it will properly be able to identify, cancer cells and kill them appropriately. But when you've got all this other stuff going on, then, you can get to the point where, as Arian was saying, your body's just barely winning the war. And then, you can just tip to losing, because it's, there's a very small, fine line there. Yeah. So, but you don't know where you are in that war. I mean, I don't know that there's a way for anyone to be tested for that. So that's why I say be a bit alarmist, because you don't know. You could be right at the point of barely winning, or you could be doing great and, and not be able to tell. Bless you. And I think a lot of times we also conflate slimness with health. So you might be slim, but have, barely controlled diabetes, and you might be in a much more dangerous position at that point than somebody, who's 275 pounds, but, but their fat cells, they have many, they're not, they're not at the point of being totally full and having diabetes and giving off, fat cells give off, what is it? The cytokines and stuff when they're overly full, or when they're very swollen. So. And so producing more inflammation. So you can have someone that you might look at and say, oh, this person, is like, just one bad day away from like getting cancer, but it might be that the other person is really at more risk. But since we don't know and have no way of measuring, I don't know. It seems to me like it's safer or a better choice to think that we're all at that same risk and act as if, it is that dangerous.
I feel like I can mostly agree with that. I'm not sure where I don't, and I don't care to think about where I don't. But
yeah.
I bet there's a piece of it. But yeah, mostly, yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm constantly telling people, stop having so much sugar. Stop having so much. Sugar's doing this. Sugar's doing this. Someone tells me about anxiety. I go, well, you know what helps anxiety? Stop having as much sugar. Someone says, guy in a store, oh yeah, I can't eat all the fat. It goes right to, we're talking about bacon. We're at the store, we're at the meat counter, and we're talking about bacon. And he says, yeah, the bacon ends are great. And I said, he says, sometimes those have more meat on them than the actual bacon does. And I go, well, yeah, that's the kind I don't want. I want the bacon ends that are mostly fat. But sometimes I get an all meat piece and I just deal with it anyway. And he goes, yeah, you're young, you can have all that. And I go, no. The fat is not, and he points to his belly. And I said, the fat is not what's doing that. It's the sugar that's doing that. Mm-hmm. I am constantly telling people to have less sugar. And if we could all just bring that amount of sugar down to 0 or right next to 0, everyone would be better off for it. There's absolutely no need for humans to have sugar, to be eating sugar. 0. It's an unnecessary macronutrient.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree. And I guess, I might not have felt this strongly if you had asked me about this, 2 years ago. But, my life experience has now watching someone go through cancer has really kind of changed my thinking about it. And, and realizing how, A, how hard it is, but also B, it's not an old person's disease, which is still what I think a lot of us think. And in fact, what was so stunning is the first time my mom was in the hospital, the other woman who was in the hospital, she was 28, she had leukemia, and she was pregnant, and she had been starting to feel tired, had gone to the doctor, got tested, and within a week's time learned that she had leukemia. She had to have an abortion. She was not going to be able to carry the baby to term. She nearly died, and she ended up having a bone marrow transplant, and it was this whole huge thing. So I was sort of catching her at the beginning of the story. And of course, when you go through chemo and all of that, that does also mean she could never have children. So, I mean, it was just a huge change in 2 weeks' time. And I was like, you're 28. How is this happening? So,
I think,
yeah,
a lot of the diseases that we used to think of as old people diseases are hitting young adults now, and sometimes kids. And that has me reeling a lot of times. A friend of mine, her cousin died, and I think it was, I forget what exact, no, he died of a heart attack, and I want to say he was late 20s, 27. And
wow,
another, because he's been overweight and high cholesterol and everything his entire life. And not that the high cholesterol is what causes that, but he was the classic picture of bad health, of bad metabolic health. And another friend of mine, his friend died. He's probably 40. That friend died of, what was it? Oh, I never found out what, but I know he's had high blood pressure since he was in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, and it's surprising, well, for all the nurses who are in the chat, definitely let us know. But I feel like the incidence of diabetes in children has really skyrocketed, and things like high blood pressure and all of that. So it's, that's pretty scary. Yeah, and Large Picture says more of us claim diabetes to be hereditary instead of looking at the lifestyles and diet as being hereditary. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cultural problem.
That's what we're told. We're parroting what's told to us. It's it occurs more in Black people, so it's hereditary. But
yeah,
they can't tell you what the diabetes gene is and which Black people have it. So it's just all people with dark skin. That doesn't even, especially for Americans, where we have Black Americans who are descendants from slaves, all have varying degrees of African blood and white blood and whatever else, a lot of times native and stuff too, to just say, it's just hereditary for all you guys, but not anyone else. That I'm not buying it. It's lazy science, it's lazy medicine, and
well, that's right. Blackness is a risk factor for diabetes. That's what they say.
Right. And I guess I know what they mean by that, but the way they say it and the way they just toss it out is so stupid, and it's not
racist
for anything.
It's racist. And we do know what they mean. They mean you're Black, so you probably have diabetes. That's what that means.
Well, but racist. But that, if they're just speaking about the statistical fact, that could actually be true and not be racist. The fact that they just say that as if it's an okay thing to say on its own without any more explanation, that's the part that pisses me off.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Audra McCoy says, what I think we're missing is insulin. Insulin is a growth hormone that stimulates cell growth and sugar uptake in cells. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so what I was saying was that doctor was saying that it's sugar and insulin together that causes the cancer cells to grow. They can't grow without having that insulin there too. So insulin is a growth factor. And that's a point that I think Dr. Fung makes in the cancer book as well, is that it's why he thinks it's so important for people to fast, is because eating and insulin are growth factors. And once you are grown, more growth is a bad thing. It just generally is bad. And so doing things that inhibit growth is a good thing, like reducing your insulin levels or not having so many insulin spikes by eating less often.
Right. And that's not to say don't eat ever. You need some growth. You need new cells. Your body is replenishing cells all the time, but you definitely don't need to be constantly in a growth state. You don't need to even be like all the time or half of your day in the growth state.
Mm-hmm. But that's kind of where we're at, because it's like you're expected to have 3 meals and 3 snacks. Even though they say 3 meals and 2 snacks, everyone always has a snack before bedtime. So that's a third snack. So
yeah,
that's 6 meals a day, 6 eating incidences a day.
Yeah. And really, I would even say it's higher than that on average, because if you add in the fact that most people are also drinking sugar in between those meals, they don't count those. But you're waking up and maybe you don't eat for the first couple hours of the day, but you are having coffee and you're probably putting a ton of sugar and cream in that coffee. And so really that's an eating incident that starts off your whole day before you've even had your so-called breakfast. You've already broken the fast.
Yeah.
And then you eat breakfast, and then you have a snack, and then you wait a little bit, maybe have some juice or something, and then you have lunch, and then you have another snack in between.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that cancer doctor was also talking about sugar, specifically sugar and polyps in the colon that, cause cancer. And he was saying that the soda, there's something about like drinking sugar, especially without food, that it just makes these polyps like really, they just love it. They just come alive. And he was also saying that there's a greater and greater incidences of people dying of colon cancer underneath the age of 35, which got me thinking about Chadwick, what's his last name? Boseman. Or I don't know where I got that from.
Who's Bosworth? That's a person.
I know. Is it like
Annette Bosworth?
But it got me thinking, like, I wonder, if that was a thing, like drinking sugar specifically is like a really big deal for polyps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Audra says, I can hardly wait to read The Cancer Code by Dr. Fung. Yeah, I was listening to it in an audiobook. It's really, really interesting. Just really eye-opening. And it's so frustrating that it's hard to get people to really pay attention to this, but it's like we have so much ability to improve our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day health by making they're biggish changes, but they're not impossible and they have such a huge impact. So it's frustrating that people are just like, oh, I don't know why I can't get my weight under control. I don't know why. I just have high blood pressure. It doesn't have anything to do with how I eat. Or maybe I should go jogging. And I'm like, please don't go jogging at 300 pounds. Just please put the soda down. Like, let's start there.
There's really simple things you can do. But no, we pick the work things first. We pick the things that feel most like work and that also allow you to still have your treats.
So back to the addiction. I think a lot of people's brains light up with sugar. A lot.
Oh yeah.
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 Simply Hazel says, I need a nice char on steak. I don't need the meat overcooked. It just feels like I'm communing with my ancestors through the food. Yeah. So I get that. Yeah. Feeling like you're out, in the wild, cooking your meat over an open fire, just how it would have been done 100,000 years ago. Exactly.
Sounds cool.
Okay. Wow, we have had a lively debate here.
Yeah. I have a belly, but I'm not a big person. Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. I'm seeing a lot more people like that now than I ever used to.
Hey, can you all see us? Someone says that the screen is black. I don't know why.
I just checked it. It looks fine to me.
Okay. Yeah, so Large Picture says we should go so far as to say that sugar causes a lot of things. Lots of issues derive from sugar consumption. Absolutely. Heart disease, gum disease, diabetes, depression. Absolutely. Stroke, high blood pressure, all of that. Alzheimer's. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, the list is huge. Like, all the things that come from... I just watched a Bickman lecture where he basically explained metabolic disease. And he says that I know why we call it that, but I don't like it. I like insulin resistance. And somebody like Sally Dino would probably say you should call that pathological insulin resistance, which I think is also probably more true, but you can get a little too specific, which is probably the reason they didn't like insulin resistance in the first place. Like, it starts sounding too sciencey. But that list, he had like the 5 things, and then like, so it's like high blood pressure, the waist circumference, triglycerides, all that stuff. And then like around that was all the diseases and syndromes and problems that come from that. And that whole circle. And Alzheimer's was on there. Cancer, heart disease. I forget the others now, but you named a bunch of them. Like, all of that from just your insulin's too high because
and I think
of the sugar consumption. That's it.
Well, I think that was an interesting point that Dr. Fung made in the Cancer Code, was that, we kind of divvy up and separate out these cancers, and so you kind of think of them as all separate. But he said when you compile, the data, 30% or your cancer risk is increased by 30% when you are obese or metabolically damaged. And so that, you can worry about, like, I don't know, asbestos, but, but your risk is so much greater because of your obesity than your risk of, developing lung cancer from exposure to asbestos. I mean, obviously it is a dangerous thing, but you're less likely to have that exposure. And you definitely have been exposed to all of the sugar and have had damage to your metabolism because of the sugar that is in everything. Unless you have taken dramatic care to not have it in your system.
Right. And that I think speaks to your point about the immune system that should be there to take care of the occasional bit of poison. Like, I think ancestrally we were built to be able to handle, like, if it was having some sugar sometimes or being exposed to pollution sometimes. But we don't know exactly what's okay, which is I think one of the points you were making. And 2, you have to have that healthy immune system in the first place to be able to do that. And most of us don't.
Yeah. So, and yeah, absolutely. And let's see, Audra says, by the way, Ada, your complexion is so radiant. I know sugar hurts beautiful complexions. Are you using that tallow soap and body moisturizer? Yes, I am. And another shout out to our friend Anika at Head to Toe Blessing. No, wait. The company is, she makes tallow lotion, and I hope soon she'll be making soaps. But the company is called Head to Toe Blessings, and that's and they sell that. But she also has a YouTube channel called Living Life Now, where she talks about, her and her family eating a carnivore diet. And I did an interview with her about her son who developed type 1 diabetes, and they were able to intervene, put him on a carnivore diet, and he is able to manage the diabetes without any insulin, which is huge. Huge. Yeah. So you definitely want to listen to that story too. So Head to Toe Blessings. And let's see, Lady V says vegetable oils and chronic inflammation equals heart attacks and high blood pressure. Yep. Vegetable oils, bad stuff.
Horrible stuff.
Yeah.
That we've only been consuming for the last, like, I don't know, 60 years, 70 years, or whatever it's been. It's less than a century.
Yeah. Audra's team char, but rare meat. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people like to cook steaks frozen, so the exterior can get the char and the interior is still rare by the time it's done cooking. It's called black and blue steak.
See, blue is still right now a little too rare for me. I feel like I can do blue every once in a while. Like, I have a taste for it, so I just barely cook my steak. But usually I want it a little more cooked than that. But I'm now kind of regularly having steaks that are red the whole way through, besides just that little sliver of gray on the outside.
Yeah, I definitely prefer it more cooked than that. I don't know. Audra McCoy brings up skin tags, another thing that sugar can cause. And also that dark skin on the back of the neck that people with diabetes can get. You ever see those people?
I look up the name for it and then I forget it like right after. It's like
nigrous is something nigrous, I think is
Africanus nigricans.
What?
Yeah.
That's what it's called?
No. It's acanthosis nigricans.
Okay.
Like, it's nigricans. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but that's what it looks like.
Yeah. So, yeah, it can do weird things to your skin, and that's definitely a concern. And a lot of people notice that when they go low carb, keto, or carnivore, the skin tags go away, which is awesome. And yeah, a lot of people come to this because of acne too. I mean, that wasn't a problem that I dealt with, but like, different people, like sugar, like, expresses it. The problems with sugar express itself in different ways. So, did you ever have trouble with acne?
Yeah. It was never like really bad, like all over my face, like the Noxzema commercials and stuff. But I did notice a big difference in basically stopping all the added. Okay, let's not say added sugar because we just talked about that. I'll say all the extra sugar. So there was the sugar that just already came in normal food, and then there was me just adding stuff to it. Like, I'm just drinking juice and drinking soda. And eating sweets for no reason at all. They're not even at all connected to a meal. They're just sweets that I'm eating. I cut out that stuff, and I felt like all the acne went away. So now if I ever get a breakout or whatever it's called, a pimple or something, it's just like, I know, like, it's because that part of my face had too much oil on it for some reason.
Okay. Yeah, so, if you're struggling with acne, giving up sugar might also be a part of that. So that would be definitely something worth trying. And let us know if you find you see a difference. And Audra brings up a great point. So sugar is so much a part of our culture. It's kind of like you got to figure out what you're going to do in those moments where we're conditioned to have sugar. So for a birthday cake or, whatever. Yeah. So, actually, I wonder about that. I mean, I finally have gotten to the point where I'm just fine disassociating food from the joy of these, special family moments. But I wonder how other people deal with it. Because I know, that first time that you're like, wait, no pecan pie with Christmas dinner? The first time it's hard, but eventually you can get to the point where you just don't look at food in the same way. What do you think, Arian?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you just, you have to, I guess this is another part of, and I feel like I say this like once a month or so, like where carnivore has to be a lifestyle. And really, what I mean is that health is a lifestyle. You don't, you got this way because of how you were living. You're going to fix it by living a different way. And that means in that instance, like, yeah, you need to know that you can do, you need to figure out different ways of celebrating. It doesn't need to be about food, period. Don't even have a meal in your birthday celebration. Go do something.
Yeah, yeah. I very often tried to have active birthday celebrations because I just kind of think it's crazy that that people, as adults, there's nothing that we do that doesn't involve food anymore. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've tried to plan hiking trips and do stuff like that so that, the birthday celebration isn't just me sitting around a table with, drinks and desserts and food. And it's hard because most people don't want to do anything. So people are like, can I meet you at the restaurant after the hike? Like, do I have to go?
Right. And I guess that works out for me a little better because my birthday celebrations are always small anyway. So me and that one or two people, like, we can figure out something that we like to do. But yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
imagine for the big groups, like if you're used to your birthday being 10, 20 people, how do you do that in a way that pleases everybody besides eating something or going out for drinks?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Audra writes, I've read The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. Heated vegetable oils, especially in polyunsaturated fats, introduces carcinogenic byproducts in the diet. I'm cooking
Hmm.
exclusively in saturated fats. Yeah,
Yep.
ditto. When I made that switch, it was, just transforming for me. It was so much better for me.
Yeah, I felt lighter doing that. Like I know we talk about how eating meat makes you feel lighter, but like just specifically um, not having vegetable oils, I could feel that difference in my body and my energy levels, and it didn't feel like I had changed anything else about my eating. It was simply that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I stopped having such inflammatory reactions, so
Hmm.
my inflammation decreased significantly. So yeah. And then I see Abigail Penn Knowles says women with PCOS have that skin darkening, and that's what she has.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, so boy, we've covered a lot of things. So I guess these are the struggles of having an ancient brain and body in a modern world. Like we're not meshing together. And I wonder, what does this mean for our species? Because I can't imagine that the way we're declining can continue another couple of generations, unchecked. I mean, we're not going to
Mm.
survive as people if, like half of our high school age kids have high blood pressure and diabetes or pre-diabetes.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
I mean, and
Um,
when you look at the statistics about the obesity in children, it has skyrocketed and it is growing at a really fast increasing rate. And I used to think, well, maybe by the time they get older, they'll kind of figure out what's going on and they'll change their ways. But I realized that, if you have been taught that this is okay to eat, it's okay to eat this way, then, you wouldn't even question it.
yep. You're going to assume that it's something different
Yeah.
if you're even trying to fix the problem at all. Because a
Yeah.
bunch of other people, some folks are just going to tell you, and in fact, I've heard people say this too. Like, look, I've been fat since I was little, so it's just a thing for me. There's no diet
Right.
that fixes this.
Right. Right. And I do try to tell people because I mean, it's hard. I want people to feel good about their bodies. So I really do appreciate the, the movement, today to accept and value and, and elevate all types of bodies. So I think that's important, but at the same time, we can't lose the message of achieving health. And I think there is that balance there. Yeah. So,
and it's a tough one to reach. And I think that, the way I think about it is that, like, there's a balance that has to be reached in pretty much everything where you're trying to improve yourself, that you have to accept where you are and be grateful for where you are while still wanting to move to whatever place you want to end up at and making the changes that are needed to get there. I really try to stay away from talking about body positivity because it's normally a feminist movement too, and my opinion is not wanted there, and I'm fine with that. But yeah, I agree that I think you can be happy about your body now and definitely not be ashamed of it, and still want to be healthy, whatever health means. Whatever, like, you can still want to be healthier and be working towards that.
Yeah. So and I think that's important to figure out how to strike that balance, as you're saying. But it's hard to do that though when we're being bombarded with such conflicting information. We're being told, like, diabetes just happens, and but it's your fault, you're eating all this sugar, and this sugar is not a problem, and so we're getting all of this conflicting information about what works, how to keep ourselves healthy, and then we're also sort of getting beat up for not having the bodies that fit into the standard American ideal, and then and I don't know. It's so much. And it's like women bear the brunt of it all. And I have to say, like when those Cosmo covers came out earlier this month and like broke the internet, everybody had an opinion about it. And, and I feel like, there's a lot of people who just should not have an opinion about it at all. Like, you don't read Cosmo, you're not like a woman, like, why are you even talking about this?
So for those of us who don't, give a little context, please. What are these covers? Who was on them?
Right. So Cosmopolitan magazine put out, the January issue, and they had, I guess they did a spread with a couple of different covers for the magazine, or, photo shoot of different women who were fit and healthy. And so they had people who were different sizes. So there was one woman, she was a black woman who was, pretty overweight, who was a yogi. And she was doing like some pretty fantastic yoga moves that at any size were fantastic. Right. So it was very impressive, to watch that. But at the same time, there was so much, a pushback from all kinds of people. And frankly, I don't think that young white men ever need to be talking about black women's bodies. Just don't need to. But everybody had an opinion, like, this isn't healthy, and how is this magazine now telling us that, this is or isn't healthy, and blah, blah, blah. And so that was what I was sort of referencing. So I think like you're saying, we have to figure out how to balance both, respecting the bodies that we're in, while, attempting to make changes and make ourselves healthier, and but not beat ourselves up for where we are, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Large Picture says, hey, you guys, I just want to say I love and appreciate the show, info, and perspectives. Keep up the good work. Yes. I'm so glad you like it. Yeah. Thank you. That makes me really feel good. And Katura says, I just said the very same thing, Arian. I'm not sure what the same thing is, but Arian says so many pearls that Katura, you must be just spreading jewelry out around your neighborhood.
Probably something about the acceptance of the body that you're in while trying to be make your own improvements.
Yeah. Yeah, Audra's right. Not accepting your body leads to people wanting to go to vices like food to self-soothe. Loving yourself is a desire to optimize health. And Katura missed the Cosmo thing. Katura, I don't know where you were. You missed the Cosmo thing, but like if you Google health at any size or Cosmo covers, you will get a ton of info about it. Everybody was talking about it earlier this month.
Yeah,
so,
if you go to their website, I don't know how to get to it off their website because I hid it from another site that I am not going to name because screw that site. But the name of the article is 11 Women Who Prove Wellness Isn't One Size Fits All. And that has all the different covers in there.
And I didn't understand why people reacted so badly to that because it's like, I mean, you can be healthy at different sizes and different bodies. And even if you're not in peak condition, that doesn't mean that your level of health isn't admirable,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I think I try to remind young people, like, youth is not the same thing as health. Young bodies are more resilient and can deal with more bad stuff that we throw at them, but that's not the same thing as health. That's just young. But, the same behavior at 50 is not, like the same behavior at 25 and 50 is going to have very different results. But I think that you have a lot of people who are young talking. And so it's just like, why are you talking? Like, there are all of these 25-year-old white guys. And I'm like, why are you even talking about this? Why? Like, you're not dating these women. You aren't these women. You're not going to become these women. So why are you talking at all? Why are you talking about Lizzo? Why are you? I don't understand that.
Yeah. And that's why I'm not naming the site that I found the Cosmo article from. So I searched for Cosmopolitan in January 2021, found a picture that was the woman that you were describing doing yoga, and it happened to be from that site. And from there, they linked to Cosmo. And then I immediately went there because I'm not reading this crap. But, I don't want to...
Yeah. I mean, in so many
people.
Sorry, go ahead.
We don't need to, just like you said. Why are we talking? Why are you talking? This isn't your conversation. Just see your way out. Keep it to yourself. It's not needed. No one asked for it.
Yeah.
And if you're young, talking about what health is for, say, like a 40-year-old, you could just shut up. It's free, all day long. No one needs your opinion, especially.
It's free to be quiet.
Right. Young white dudes commenting on black women's body and what's healthy and what's not. Shut up. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and in so many ways, those conversations are just, cloaked racism. And I think that has to be said too. And I think women take the brunt, black women take the brunt of so much in our society. So there's just no reason that most of these people need to be talking at all about Lizzo's body.
Yeah. Like the whole Cosmo thing. It's like, you don't read Cosmo. Why do you have an opinion?
Yeah.
It's not for you. It never was for you.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for you. Not for you. So Katura says, I only watch you guys, no TV or other social media things. Yes! Nice. Now that's how it should be. Don't watch nothing else. Just don't.
You want to talk about self-love. That is it right there. Not that we're so spectacular, although I think we are pretty good, if I do say so myself. But just cutting out so many of the negative influences, it's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Now, Monica Wilson says, I was 418 pounds with normal insulin, blood pressure, and cholesterol.
Wow.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm very glad to hear that. And I hope that you continue to, to see good health. That's really amazing, though. And Audra says, we don't need the approval or permission of young white guys for self-love and acceptance. I unfollow all those self-important experts.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, I did have to do a Google search because at first I was like seeing some of these random videos show up on YouTube, and I'm like, why is this person from Car Chat talking about Cosmo? So I had to sort of dip into the popular culture to see what was going on, and then dip out again because, I not interested in what these people have to say.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, in any event, I think that I have been really trying to, define what I consider to be healthy and map out my path to that direction, in that direction. And, and I'm beginning to recognize that health is not a destination, it's a path. So, my health is going to be constantly changing, as each and every day happens. And each and every day, whatever activities I take are going to impact my health in a positive or negative way. And so staying healthy is not, staying healthy is not, it's not a place. It's it's like a daily road. And so I'm trying to think about what are the activities that I think are important to maintain health, and how do I make sure that I continue to do those things?
Yeah.
How do you think about it?
I feel like I do feel like it's a journey, and I feel like it's a bunch of gradual improvements. I do feel that to an extent, there are levels to it where like you kind of reach a plateau of health where, all right, I figured out this thing, and now I don't have, say for instance, the anxiety anymore, or my anxiety has now reached a level that I'll call manageable versus it's hitting me every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of uncontrolled every day. And maybe there's some days it's just, oh, well, today's a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for that. But who knows when's the next time I'm going to get one of these? Or like my health is so far in the pits that like I don't have energy throughout the day. I do think you eventually reach a point in healthiness where you do have a pretty baseline level of energy. That doesn't mean that it never dips, it never goes up, but like you've hit that level where you've kind of locked that in. But yeah, it's constantly, so I see it as constant elevation where you're kind of like climbing, not really cliffs, but like climbing inclines to reach a plateau, and you feel that you've hit another level, and then there's always more climbing to do. There's always a better that you can get to, and
Gotcha.
it's a bunch of little decisions that get you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a lot of little decisions that get you there. So, paying attention to each one of those is super important. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So each and every meal, each and every time you put something in your mouth is an opportunity for you to, to choose the path of health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about eating ancestrally in modern times, then it is all of those little decisions. That's a good way that you can think about that. Is this something that people would have eaten
Mm-hmm.
2 centuries ago, 2 millennia ago? 200 millennia ago.
Yeah.
Is it at least close to that?
Yeah. Great questions. So I see Monica says that she lost 200 pounds and is now insulin resistant. So
wow, nice.
First I want to say, oh my God, congratulations on losing 200 pounds. That is an incredible feat. And, brava to you for accomplishing that. That is amazing.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, but I see that you say you're insulin resistant. So, I still would ask whether you're older, so having normal blood sugar and all of that stuff when you're younger, like you can be there. Your body's going to do everything it can to keep everything normal as long as it can until it can't anymore. So, as you get older, you kind of just aren't able to do those things as well. So I just wonder in that time, like, you got tested in a time when you were still in the normal range, but it doesn't mean that problems weren't happening. It just means that, your body was still able to keep up. But I don't know, but in any event, healing can happen. You definitely see people reversing diabetes, reversing insulin resistance. It takes time. It takes, commitment to following this way of eating. And fasting does seem to be, helpful in that case. So, that might be, I'm sure that you've done all of those things. You've lost 200 pounds for sure. You know all of this. But I just want to continue to support what you've done and, just say, great job. Great job.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And to me, what that says is just, you've got further to go.
Yeah.
I understand that can be disappointing, possibly. I guess I can't really read the tone from the text, but if you are disappointed, that's okay. That's fine. But don't sit in that too much. Keep going.
Yeah. Let's see. Audra says there are influencers who are sincere at promoting habits to optimize health and those that need to generate clickbait because there's not substance in their message. Yeah. So that's why we strive here to provide, interesting conversation and good information from which you can make solid decisions about your health. Yeah. And ZZ Captain says, I try to watch all the science I am interested in, nutrition especially, in social media, because it is so poorly misunderstood and misrepresented by the education system. Yeah. And then Katura, thank you for the super sticker. I so appreciate that. That is so sweet. Thank you. And Johnny G thinks the dog looks like my dog. Yes. And my dog is looking very lovingly at me saying, why have you not given me dinner? Why have you not given me dinner yet? Why? And Audra, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you're enjoying this topic. I do try to come up with, topics that would be helpful for people. Yeah. So let's see. I see Monica's 55. Yeah. Well, you have just done amazing. So good job, Monica.
Yeah.
And then Johnny G says, so is it convenience, taste, or price that we eat trash? It's not for health. All good points. Yeah. Agreed. I think that, and I definitely hear people saying, oh, I just love, the way this food tastes, blah, blah, blah. But they, there's whole companies and careers that are designed to figure out what you love and to produce that flavor so that your brain lights up. And so, it's not always our fault that we love this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I see Monica writes, just did my first 30 days of carnivore and fasting glucose, which had been 111, 114, was 88 this morning. Oh my God.
That's awesome.
God. Yes. Brava.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah. So that tells you, I think that you just needed to get lower carb, and and it's just could take more time.
Yeah, I think I've seen a bunch of people say that as they got older, their tolerance of carbs got worse and worse. Like I guess I should say they became more intolerant of carbs as they got older and reached like real middle age and then old age.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. Isn't that 111, 114? Isn't that, what's the diabetic range for glucose?
I am not sure. I think that that's not diabetic, but that's an indication that there's something going on. Definitely.
Yeah, like that's like pre-diabetic where the doctor starts to look at you sideways, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and this is the story that I tell, that when I was doing keto, it was before we really started talking about keto and that people were testing their blood ketones, and people were just still talking about doing low carb and whatever. And so this was back in 2015 or 2016. And I had first heard people start talking about testing their blood sugar and their blood ketones. So I ordered a blood sugar monitor and got the ketone sticks. And I went and tested myself. And the first 2 mornings, my blood sugar was like 104 or 110. And I was like, I had already lost about 35 pounds. I had been doing low carb for a while, and I was kind of like, how is that possible? I mean, it shouldn't be that high if I've already lost weight and I've been low carb for a while. But it made it, kind of sunk in for me that I needed it to tighten it up a bit and keep going. And that was really kind of it. So I don't, and I shudder to think, I don't know where I was. I don't know when the last time I had gotten my blood sugar checked when I was at the doctor. So I, between the last time I did it and the time that I decided to lose weight, like, who knows? I could have been pre-diabetic at that point. I really don't know.
Yeah.
But given the numbers that I saw when I did start measuring, that makes me think, yeah, I probably was pre-diabetic. And didn't know.
Yeah. So Susan said 120. I just quickly looked up, and it's Mayo Clinic, so grain of salt, but they say fasting blood sugar 100 to 125 is considered pre-diabetic.
Oh, okay. All right. So, but still, over 100, it's kind of like, hey, something's going on here. This isn't,
Oh, yeah. I'm saying it starts at 100. That's what Mayo Clinic is saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said 120.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Susan said 120.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mayo Clinic says 100 to 125 is pre-diabetic.
Yes.
So, yeah, that was about what I figured it would be. And, yeah, that's awesome that she, 30 days carnivore, brought it down into a normal range.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you want to keep it there so that your body can get used to needing a lot less insulin, and you can start making and using less insulin in your body, and then that resistance should go away.
Yeah. But, and I think that's also a testament. I mean, Monica, I wonder, have you been testing your blood sugar throughout? Because I wonder if even by, week 2, you probably brought your blood sugar down like that quickly. It's amazing how quickly, eating this way can make an impact and, a positive impact. So that's just amazing. I'm so happy for you. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
Bayet days carnivore.
Yeah. And Bayet says, ancestral eating, imagine today's ingredients written in hieroglyphics. And what I wanted to say is they are. Can you pronounce any of those words when you read through a packet? Through the ingredients list? Ba-dum-bum.
Did you have that prepared? Was that off the top of your head?
When I saw the comment, and that was the thought that came, but I have to let you finish talking so that I could come in and say that joke. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's off the top.
Yeah.
y'all came for the knowledge. You didn't realize Eddie was doing comedy today too.
Yeah. I try. You know, it's a lot easier to absorb things with a little comedy in there.
Yeah, that stuff does look like every time. That was why. Oh, y'all will be happy to know. Y'all beat me down. No more decaf coffee. I was drinking. I looked at the ingredients. It was like benzyl something, methylate something else, a bunch of crap that sounds like chemicals that I don't want in my body. I don't care if they're in low amounts or something. So yeah, didn't want any of them. And so now it's just regular coffee, maybe like twice a week, a cup of that, and that's it.
Okay.
Which still, isn't perfect, but it's what's working for now.
Yeah.
And I don't miss the coffee, weirdly enough.
Good. I thought I would miss it more, but like I don't. I miss having the ritual, like in the afternoon, if I feel like I want to take a break from work, to be able to stand up and go make a cup of coffee is like a nice, it's a nice break. Just like, smoking a cigarette was like the perfect amount of time to take a break. Yeah. And now, there isn't anything. So I just have to like just get up and walk in a circle around, the living room, or go walk the dog. But yeah, it's just about kind of figuring out the new thing that you will insert as a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding some other way to do it.
Now, Audra writes, let's write a collaborative book. Those that are in different phases and places of being carnivore should submit a journal of eating and fasting routines and how we all adapt to ancestral eating. Love that idea, Audra. Love it. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I, definitely... What are you laughing about?
Oh, Simply Hazel. Mic dropped. You got Arian to give up coffee. Wow. Yeah, he knows. The coffee could be a thing every day.
Yeah. So, the good word to the wise. Goad him into doing something. Don't do it yourself. And let him go on.
And then if you have a couture to talk just the perfect amount of crap, like Arian, take your own advice, that's what does it. Like those two together.
Yeah. Monica says she started testing her blood sugar in week 2 and was shocked at the numbers. She had been at 75 to 80 just a year ago. Yeah. I think that the body wants to be in good health, so it keeps things at the right level for as long as it can until it just can't anymore. But that drop off can be quite sudden, even though the decline may have been slowly happening for years. The point at which your body can no longer, keep things regulated can be quite swift.
Yeah. I need somebody to write a book about metabolism and menopause. I feel like it keeps coming up in just like the people I'm around, and I wish that I had more to say about it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that it goes to show you about how little research, interest, focus is put on women's health.
Yeah.
Especially older women's health. Yeah. So totally. Audra says, if I could purchase a book where we Black folks find our way to health in a collective book with overcoming our struggles and how we adapt to eating ancestrally, it would be very helpful. Audra, hit me up. Let's talk about how to make this happen. I cannot spearhead that project, but I can certainly help. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
So, I do want to think about myself living an ancestral lifestyle, and And then I have to ask myself, what does that mean? For me, I think, an ancestral lifestyle is one where you get plenty of exercise, but not weird, unnatural exercise. The exercise that comes in the course of like accomplishing things, whatever those things might be. It involves getting a good amount of sunlight and fresh air, rest, sleep, eating whole quality foods, and moments of no stress, or being able to be relaxed at some points during the day and not stressed out and worried. Well, how do you define an ancestral, and what's an ancestral lifestyle for you?
I'm gonna cop out and I'm gonna say all those things you named. And is there anything else that I would even add to that or take away? Not really, but I'm gonna put an overarching thing on that, and I'm gonna say simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that goes to like mental, psychological simplicity. Like put down your phone, turn off your notifications.
Okay, I can't do that. I can't put my phone down.
Right. All right. So this is where Arian's ancestral living diverges. It's simplicity and all those things. It's also like understanding that life is to be enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for me, like that's where the simplicity comes in. That just I thrive on that. If I can just, I'm not myself. I'm more angry if I'm not able to just be and focus. So the food helps with that. Like the food is a big part of that. Not having to think about, oh God, what grandiose meal am I gonna make today? What recipe am I gonna look up? How exactly do I do this? Oh, I gotta buy scallions. I don't even know what scallions look like. Like, nah, I'm cooking meat. I'm putting salt on it. I'm done. That's it. Like, that's great. Also, like, focusing on simple things, like, like just getting, like you said, getting your sleep together. I think if you think about the life that we used to live as humans and try to incorporate as many different aspects of that as you can into what we do now, you'll be there, or you'll at least be much closer to there than you were before, and much closer than the average person probably in all the world, and especially Western society.
Yeah, absolutely. I see. Sorry. Well, I was going to say, I see Simply Hazel says, any thoughts on mud water as coffee replacement? I don't know what mud water is.
What is that? Mud water. Coffee alternative consisting of organic ingredients lauded by cultures old and young for their health and performance benefits, with 1/7 the caffeine of coffee. It has cacao, masala chai, turmeric, which is turmeric and turmeric the same thing?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Sea salt, cinnamon, lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, and chaga. Oh, so chaga's the stuff that's in a lot of the coffee replacements, isn't it? Isn't there a chaga tea that's supposed to be real strong and kind of like coffee?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you just kind of have to decide how your body responds to those things and whether that's worth it to you. I think for me, it's probably I'm going to have an allergic reaction to one of those things. if not all of them.
In there.
Yeah.
I'm going to say if you really want to
Katora says
coffee,
mushrooms.
Okay.
I think chaga might be mushrooms.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what it is. If you really want to replace coffee, start off by just lowering the amount that you're drinking. And then I would say don't replace it with anything. Just stop doing it altogether.
Well,
Like,
Audra's got an interesting drink here, a bone broth latte. Hot homemade stock, egg yolk, and butter blended for a creamy treat.
yeah, I can't roll with the
That sounds like
eggs.
a appetizer, or sort of like the beginning of a meal.
It does actually. Um, I can't roll with the eggs in drinks. Um, for y'all that like it, do you? Not for me.
I guess you never liked eggnog either.
No, eggnog is good. Eggnog doesn't taste like eggs.
Well, I don't
But
think her bone broth latte tastes like eggs.
I've tried. I haven't tried that, but I've tried the egg in coffee, like blended up till it was frothy, and I did it, and it didn't taste right.
Huh.
Um, Also, like the
Yeah.
frothy drinks period, just like we've talked about this, me, you, and Deb before with the bulletproof coffee and stuff. Like I try them,
Yeah.
either they don't work for me or I just don't like them.
Yeah. Um.
But
So, uh-huh. Go ahead.
that is a good thing that you can do. If you really want to get, if you just need something warm in the morning, um,
Hmm.
then yeah, any sort of tea is going to work. A dark tea will pretty much do it, but you're still having the caffeine. It's just not going to be nearly as much caffeine as coffee.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, broth. However, you need to do broth, as long as you're not doing it in some way that adds caffeine back to it, that's a
Yeah.
decent replacement. But
Yeah.
I find it easiest to just not even drink anything in the morning.
I mean, at this point, I've completely forgotten about it, and since it's like out of the rotation, I find that I don't even remember to drink anything. So usually the first time I drink is the first meal I have of the day. And then it's like, oh, right, I'm thirsty too.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, have you found that your eating window has changed at all since you
Um,
stopped the coffee?
yeah, no, not really. It's just, yeah, I mean, I guess my eating window has moved later and later. I mean, a number of things change.
Oh,
I've also sleeping later. I jump up and I go to the dog park immediately, and then I get back, and so next thing I know, it's like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and I'm starting to make my first meal of the day.
mm,
So, whereas before I'd have coffee and I would have breakfast at that time. So, yeah.
can see. So I do now. I've been trying it and it's mostly worked out, except for nights like tonight where I feel like I'm gonna need to eat a little more. But also, I had a really lean dinner. It was too lean. I thought it was gonna be fattier, but it didn't happen. So
Uh huh.
I think what I end up doing, there are some days where because of the no coffee in the morning, there's nothing suppressing appetite. So it's like 8 o'clock and I'm hungry, ready to go, stomach's growling. And there's other days where I'm good till 11 still.
Uh huh.
But when I was drinking coffee, I never had the hungry at 8 o'clock days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. Coffee definitely does suppress the appetite. So, yeah. All right. Well, we have had a long and lively conversation, but I think we might need to wrap it up now.
That's not 20.
Yeah, yeah. So, thank you to all of you who have been here tonight and have contributed to this incredible conversation. I think we covered a lot of really good information, And I hope you have come away from this like really being able to identify what is an ancestral diet to you and how can you incorporate all those things into your day. And and a lot of those things don't have to do with food. So getting sunlight, getting fresh air, getting sleep, being able to find a way to be relaxed and not stressed out at some points during the day. All of those things are as important as the food. So I hope that you're able to do some of those things.
Yeah.
All right.
And
so
let us know how they go.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely want to hear about that. Also, Tuesday, I have an interview with the author of The Sacred Cow coming up. So I encourage you all, definitely. What are you laughing about?
I'll tell you in a second. Finish what you were saying.
Okay. So definitely check out that interview. She interviewed me on her podcast and it was really great. And the interview that we did together was just really fascinating, and it helped me to sort of get the language and the concepts for how to talk to my family members who are vegetarian, who really think that what I'm doing is so unhealthy. And I really do recommend everybody read The Sacred Cow because it just really encapsulates all of the arguments, and it helps you to just be able to articulate that actually red meat is not bad for you. It's quite nutritious. And, eating the most nutrient-dense food in the world is the best thing to do. And you don't need supplements. If you are going to cut out the most nutrient-dense food, that is when you need supplements.
Right.
So I encourage you to read the book. Be here next Tuesday. I swear to God, my computer, I think I figured out all the computer troubles, so I'm not going to have that problem again. It will be ready on Tuesday, and I'll see you all next Thursday.
Yeah. So the thing that was funny, real quick, Johnny G sent a dab emoji, but in Ecamm, it just looks... It doesn't show the actual emoji, so it just says elbow cough. So I'm looking at Ecamm and I'm going, what the? Why would he?
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was an elbow cough emoji. I go on my phone and look for it. It doesn't exist, but apparently YouTube has it. And yeah, it's the guy dabbing, but Ecamm says it's.
Yeah. Gotcha. I saw that and I was thinking, I don't understand what that joke was, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow! Simply Hazel has switched from real milk to oat milk. I wonder if that is different, but maybe not better. But you'll have to see, test it. But I definitely did better when I took out dairy altogether. I would not have done better switching to oat milk or any kind of nut milk.
When I was having my digestive problems, I think I tried soy and almond milk because I had already stopped drinking cow's milk, thinking that I was doing something healthier for myself, and both of those gave me horrible problems. I don't know about oat milk, but I imagine it would have done something similar.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend oat milk. Okay.
Me neither.
Yeah. All right. So I will see you all later next Thursday. So excited for it, and have a great week. All right. Bye, guys.
Good night, everyone.